1991, at the height of big-budget action blockbusters and slow-motion fighter jet flybys, a movie came along that decided to make fun of all of it. That movie was Hot Shots, directed by Jim Abrahams and released by 20th Century Fox, a rapid-fire parody of military action films, most notably Top Gun. It took the slick, ultra-serious tone of 80s aviation dramas and flipped it completely on its head. At the center of the madness is Topper Harley, played by Charlie Sheen, a talented but emotionally conflicted fighter pilot, recruited for a high-stakes mission. Along the way, he falls for Ramada Thompson, played by Valeria Golino, while clashing with fellow pilots and navigating the absurd leadership of Admiral Benson, played by Lloyd Bridges. The plot? Technically, it's about a covert military operation called Operation Sleepy Weasel, involving faulty aircraft parts, political pressure, and a risky bombing mission. But really, the plot exists to deliver one joke after another. Visual gags, wordplay, slapstick, background jokes, and blink and you'll miss it punchlines. And that's exactly why it works. Let's start with Charlie Sheen. By 1991, Sheen was already known for dramatic roles in films like Platoon and Wall Street. Here, he plays against that intense, brooding image, essentially parodying the serious Tom Cruise-style action hero. His performance as Topper Harley is surprisingly disciplined. He plays it straight, which somehow makes the jokes land even harder. Later, of course, he'd become a sitcom powerhouse on 2.5 Men, cementing his place in pop culture history. Valeria Golino's Ramada Thompson is both a send-up of the supportive love interest and an active participant in the absurdity. Golino had previously starred in Rain Men, bringing dramatic credibility that makes her commitment to the comedy even better. Her scenes with Sheen, particularly the now legendary over-the-top romantic montage, are comedy gold. Then there's Lloyd Bridges as Admiral Benson, and honestly, he might steal the entire movie. Bridges, who had been a respected dramatic actor for decades and starred in the TV series Sea Hunt, fully embraced the absurdist comedy in the 1980s and early 90s. His physical comedy here is delivered with absolute conviction. We also get a young John Cryer as Jim Washout Pfaffenbach. Cryer, who had already gained recognition in Pretty in Pink, plays the eager but slightly unhinged pilot with perfect neurotic energy. And yes, years later, he'd reunite with Sheen on 2.5 Men, this time as the straight man to Sheen's chaos. Ryan Stiles appears as Mailman, a blink-and-you'll-miss-it role for the future improv legend from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Even in limited screen time, his dry delivery fits perfectly into the film's rhythm. Kristy Swanson pops up as Kowalski, and she would later become widely known as the original Buffy in the 1992 Buffy the Vampire Slayer film. Cary Elwes plays Kent Gregory, the smug rival pilot, essentially the Iceman archetype turned up to 11. Elwes, of course known from The Princess Bride, also went on to later appear in Saw, showing his range from swashbuckling hero to horror villain. And Kevin Dunn appears as a government official entangled in the conspiracy subplot. Dunn has had a prolific career as a character actor, showing up in everything from political dramas to comedies. Hot Shots comes from the creative lineage of the team behind Airplane, and you can feel that DNA everywhere. The humor is relentless. Visual puns, background signs with jokes written on them, sight gags that pay off 10 seconds later, physical comedy, deadpan delivery. The movie doesn't just parody Top Gun, it also takes swings at 9.5 Weeks, Dances with Wolves, military bureaucracy, Cold War paranoia, and even product placement. One of the most memorable scenes, the romantic food montage, escalates from a sensual parody to full-on Looney Tunes absurdity. Eggs, bacon, it's committed, completely ridiculous, and somehow it's still funny decades later. And that's key. So here, 35 or so years later, why does this movie still matter? First, parody sequels are back. With legacy sequels, reboots, and nostalgia-driven blockbusters dominating theaters, audiences once again live in a world of ultra-serious cinematic universes. The kind of world Hot Shots was built to poke fun at. In 1991, it was mocking glossy 80s militarism and blockbuster bravado. Nowadays, we're surrounded by billion-dollar franchises that often take themselves very seriously. Watching Hot Shots feels refreshing because it reminds us that it's okay to laugh at spectacle. Second, the comedy style holds up surprisingly well. Unlike some 90s comedies that relied heavily on topical references, much of Hot Shots is actually built on timeless visual humor and character-driven absurdity. A well-executed physical gag doesn't expire. A deadpan reaction shot doesn't age out. Third, and maybe most importantly, it represents a kind of mid-budget theatrical comedy that's become rare. In the early 90s, studios regularly released theatrical comedies that weren't tied to intellectual property empires. They were just comedies, built around performers, built around jokes. Today, that space has shifted largely to streaming. Watching Hot Shots feels like revisiting a time when studios gambled on pure comedy chaos and let it fly. And finally, nostalgia. For many viewers, this movie was cable TV gold. It played endlessly on weekend afternoons. You'd catch 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Certain jokes became burned into memory. It's comfort comedy. The film was successful enough to spawn a sequel, Hot Shots Part 2, which leaned even harder into parody, especially of Rambo-style action films. But even the original stands on its own as a time capsule of early 90s humor. That transitional moment between 80s excess and 90s irony. It also captures Charlie Sheen at a fascinating moment in his career, before the tabloid era, before sitcom superstardom, when he was willing to completely poke fun at his own dramatic image. And Lloyd Bridges? The man proved that a veteran dramatic actor could reinvent himself late in his career by simply committing to silliness without apology. Rewatching Hot Shots these days isn't just about revisiting a parody of Top Gun. It's about remembering a time when comedies were unapologetically goofy, when punchlines flew faster than missiles, when actors with serious credentials leaned into absurdity just because it was funny. It's light, it's ridiculous, it's packed wall to wall with jokes, and sometimes in a cinematic landscape filled with lore, timelines, and interconnected universes, it's nice to watch a movie whose only mission is to make you laugh. Operation Sleepy Weasel may not have been the most strategic military plan ever conceived, but as a comedy, mission accomplished.